dome. It's up in your dome. It's up in your dome. Break that shit.
Hello, welcome to Digging in the Dome. I am Chris. He knows me as Balls. That is not Kevin. He is much more handsome. He's got more hair, and he's way funnier. This is actually somebody that I consider to be a mentor of mine now in the comedy world. He is a comedian, but he is also a teacher. He is also a dad. He is on multiple podcasts. I mean, this guy, I don't know when you have time to sleep, so I'm guessing that you probably don't.
Yeah, no, I don't.
But I mean, he's been doing this since COVID, doing comedy since COVID, and now you can see him touring around the world. We're going to talk about some of his dates coming up, but please give a warm Digging in the Dome welcome to Mr. J. Yoder.
Thank you for having me.
So this is where applause. Yeah, so I'll probably just add that in post.
They're going crazy. I can hear them.
Yeah, they're nuts. So, you know, you're obviously your first love in occupation. It was teaching, right? Is that what you? Let me back up. Did you start there, or did you have designs on something else?
I want to be a ballerina.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, you got the body for it.
No, baseball. Baseball was my first love. That was probably the dream for most of it until I had a bad junior year. I broke my leg and had a couple opportunities. I was going to do junior Olympics and stuff like that.
Oh, man.
But, you know, you get the path you're supposed to take. So
right.
It worked out really well. I focused on my studies then.
Mm-hmm.
I got to study abroad in Argentina. Her name was Jill. No, I did. I studied in Argentina for about 6 to 8 weeks in like a summer. We had an exchange program where, because they're in the Southern Hemisphere, they came in our winter, which was their summer, and then vice versa.
Vice versa, right.
So that way I didn't miss any school. I just had extra school that year.
Okay. Oh, great. Extra school.
Extra school.
It could be worse. I mean, you're going to a beautiful country and
in all honesty, like it was a bilingual school we went to. So in the morning we had like our intensive class, and then I basically shadowed my host brother. But his afternoon schedule was English class, like it was math and English, because it was a bilingual school. So then after lunch, you would get a 2-hour lunch break to like go home, digest your food. Oh, so I just wouldn't go back. I would just go explore. I'm out here. Yeah. Well, you know, why? I'm going to sit in English class, and there's no point. And it was my summer, so I was like, I'll go see a little bit of Argentina. So.
It would be really embarrassing if you got a C in English.
Yeah, right. I know, right? That would be embarrassing. That's what happens with kids who speak at home and then they take Spanish. Let's say they speak Spanish at home and then they come to school and take Spanish. Yeah. They usually don't do well because it's different. You learn how to speak it and you can listen and speak really well, but they don't know the grammatical structures. So so it's interesting. But so I really got into languages because I was meeting people I wouldn't have and I love meeting people. I love talking to people. So then I was like, all right, I'm going to be a teacher. I think I kind of always knew
that's kind of what you wanted to do.
I wanted to teach because if like I had information and you didn't, I felt like obligated. Like, I wanted to spread it. Like if I'm higher up on the mountain, I want to reach back and pull you up too.
That's great. And I've noticed that about you too. Like just again, someone who's been doing this for like literally a cup of coffee, being able to talk to somebody like you that's done it and done it successfully, we'll talk a little bit more about teaching, but I really do want to, I swear to God, it is the goddamn hackiest podcast question I can ask a comedian, but I do it every time because people will want to know, why did you do it? Why did you get into comedy?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I always used humor just in my daily life. I moved a lot, broken home kind of stuff, moved a lot. Right. So I think it was always an easy way to either deflect and like make people laugh. It was an easy way to break the ice. Yeah. So I think that was naturally something I did just to socialize and make friends. And, I did some acting younger. I did a lot of acting growing up, took some acting lessons, acted into college. And then I just was teaching, and then something happened, maybe like 2014, 2015, we were doing a faculty talent show to raise money for like the Honor Society. Okay. And so somebody said, hey, you should do your Matt Foley. I used to do this impression of Chris Farley of living in a van down by the river. Yeah. So if we were at a happy hour, I'd break out into a little voice every once in a while and crack people up. And so I did it for the kids at the talent show. And I'm like, they're not going to know
They're not
this.
gonna
This
know who
was
it
like
is,
a million years ago. But, you know, we have this thing called YouTube.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
so then all of a sudden, if they didn't know it, then they now went back and looked it up. It was just good in its own. I didn't forget just how funny it was just in itself. This concept of they found pot in these kids, so let's bring in this guy to motivate them. It's a ridiculous.
Ends up crashing through a table.
Yes, and I did that, but I bruised my ribs. I had to go to urgent care because I bruised my ribs because I overshot it. Like we had a table that was made of styrofoam, and the legs were made of styrofoam, and they were cut a little bit to give.
Right, so you can.
But I had so much adrenaline that I over jumped.
Oh no!
And my mic pack was in the breast pocket, and so it hit the thing, and it just lodged right in.
It hit you under your titty.
Yep. And you could just see that it I had a moment where I fell through, and you could see in the tape that I think I lost consciousnly for a nanosecond. And then I just popped up.
Back up by the river.
And so I popped up right in characters. It was like, whoops-a-daisy, whoops-a-daisy. But you're like, oh, God. But then I got through it. But in my last living in a van down by the river, you could hear my voice cracking a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I was really struggling. So then everybody loved it. They went insane for it. I actually started doing it for retirement. So one of the gym teachers.
Oh, for people's retirement.
Yeah. So one of the gym teacher, when he retired, they asked him in the school newspaper, what was one of your favorite moments? And he's like, oh, there's a ton, except that one time Yoder did the Matt Foley. That was my favorite. So for his retirement dinner, I rewrote it.
Okay.
I kept the same bones, but I rewrote it specific to him.
Okay. So what was the premise around the original skit? Or I guess it was one of the original
motivating
skits.
the kids to not do drugs.
Exactly.
So this was motivating him that retirement wasn't going to be all golf excursions and whatever. Right. And so I did the same beats, but I started freestyling in stuff. And then I was like, I may not have a family who loves me. And I started bringing in some of the other, but then I would start doing accolades. I may not have been voted PA coach of the year. And so I was just, basically motivating him.
Right.
And it was fun. Then I ended up doing it for a guidance counselor after that. And it became just this regular
thing that you were doing.
And it was that's when I veered off. And even though I had the structure of the skit, that Bob Odenkirk had originally done,
yes,
I was now trying to make it my own a little bit.
Right, sure.
That was the first thing. And then that was and then that was it. And then...
But it is a very different situation that you're talking about than getting on stage and actually telling jokes. I know, so because I know, at least from my perspective, and we were even talking about this a little bit yesterday, it tuned up when you gave me really good feedback on one of my jokes, and it was about not being so down on yourself, using that as a mechanism to try to get a laugh. Yeah. And it was a very astute observation that you had, because I can't, he had a weird name
Cyril.
Cyril.
I think it was Cyril.
Cyril. We'll call him Cyril. Cyrus the Virus from Con Air. That's who it was. It was Cyril. And he said, no, I liked it. And he said, I like that. I guess he liked the self-deprecation part of it. And then you said, yeah, but remember, this is his third time doing it.
Yeah, he liked it because it made him feel comfortable.
It's okay.
He was nervous to go up there.
Right.
Yeah. But an audience person who's sitting there, especially if there's someone paying money to come see a comedian.
Right.
That'd be like me going to a doctor and be like, yeah, I'm not really good at this whole doctoring thing. And I'd be like, well, maybe,
I don't think I'm going to.
Maybe put the scalpel down.
Yeah,
and that's,
yes.
So I think it's in that vein that it's and it's, we all do it. Don't get me wrong. We all do it. It was something, I did the same thing, but it's just, it's one of those things that it's I can save that 5 seconds and fill it with something else. Or,
something that's going to be actually maybe a little bit more appealing, and not necessary to take yourself down a peg.
But it's so easy sometimes not. There's, we all develop bad habits and whatever,
sure.
Yeah. But that's, so
getting back to it, what you're curving around, you've done this
comedy. My wife and I would, when we were dating, 16 years ago, we would always go to comedy shows, Dane Cook, Jim Gaffigan. And even now when we would go to bed, we put on Pandora
just comedy
and just watch comedy. And so our last date before the shutdown
for COVID,
in February, Valentine's Day, was at Soul Joel's inside when he was in
when he was in the
Royersford.
building in actually Royersford, like kind
he was
of
on the third floor.
Yeah.
In that building, and it was BYO. And then we went and had a great time. And then March came, everything shut down. And then it was very dark, like in my house. It was just a rough time. It was a rough time for a lot of people, but
for sure.
We were having a hard time. My mom was living us. We have 2 daughters. My one daughter is autistic. And so trying to like homeschool them, we're still doing our job, keep everybody's spirits up.
Yep.
It was just, you kind of feel the weight of it. We would have Impractical Jokers on the TV, like True TV. Like, yeah, we just had in the background all the time. And I was just like, oh, we're not laughing as much. And then Joel started putting up Tuesday night. He started advertising open mic
for Tuesday nights.
And we had my mom at the house. So we had someone in our bubble. So we're like, oh, let's go down and get out of the house. We just went and watched for the first, month or so.
Yeah.
And this must have been like November-ish, December-ish. And then finally I was like,
was it 2020 or 2020?
So that was 2020.
Okay, November 2020. I got you. Okay.
Yeah, because it was the shutdown was March of 2020. So this was probably about November. We started going to the open mics on Tuesday. We just watched,
right? And
then I was like, oh, you watch all these people go up. There might have been 40 people that would come,
right,
and do 4 minutes. You'd be there for like 3 hours, but you had nothing else to do, so whatever.
Why not? Yeah.
So it was cool. And then I was like, I think I could do that. And she's like, prove it. And so then,
she laid down the gauntlet
well,
for you.
Like just like this innocent thing, like, well, if you're gonna do it, so I got 3 books off of Amazon. And I only read 2 of them. The one was the Comedy Bible. Another one was called Mastering Stand-Up.
Oh, okay. I never heard of that one. Who
so that's by Stephen Rosenfield.
Stephen Rosenfield?
It's out of New York City.
Oh, that's the guy that you work with now?
So that's now.
Okay, sorry. Look, I'm getting to the end. Spoiler alert. Sorry. Go ahead.
So funny enough, what I was going to say, so what had happened is I read the Comedy Bible first because it had activities.
Okay.
So I was treating it like an activity. Right. It had goals you had to do, things for you to do, dates, like goals to set.
Yeah.
And I just kept following the rules. It was like, oh, set a goal. So my first goal was like 100 open mics in the first year.
Okay.
So I said, first year, do 100 open mics. That means you're serious. You can get to 2 a week, and you'll be fine. I think I got to 100 within like 8 months.
Yeah, I'm like in the 60s or 70s now.
I've done a lot. You can do, and then it was harder because there was still COVID.
Yeah.
So like,
right. So how did that work? Like, so because it was outside.
So Joel's was outside, so that was going. Then Bar 13 on Wednesdays, and
that's down Delaware, right?
In Delaware, they had like a glass partition up, like it felt like a zoo animal,
like fucking Roadhouse, like when the dude was playing behind the
but instead of it being a fence, it was like just it felt like you were a zoo animal.
Stop laughing at me.
And then Gap in Phoenixville was opening up, and they had an upstairs, and you did it there, and you did, you wore masks until you went up or whatever. It was like, and so those were the
mic,
3.
Maybe.
Those were like exactly. Or you had the little condom. A lot of the places had the condom things you just put over the mic.
Okay.
So everybody got one to put over it.
Yeah.
And so you did those things.
Hate them.
Never been a fan. But yeah, so I did that, and then and then I just started, like, at first it was like you have all the my bad habit was pacing.
Like going,
I would just I would like my pace. I was too fast.
Oh, you're pacing.
I was too fast. I was kind of like, just because you're a singer-songwriter for the first time. So like you're writing this joke and you're like, oh, do you think it's funny? Oh, you don't think it's funny? All right, let me go get another one. Here you go. And I didn't give anybody time to enjoy it, digest it, and laugh.
Yep.
And so that was my problem. I was stepping on laughs, or I wasn't given enough time for people to laugh.
To sink in for people. And that's that's something you guys all kind of taught me is, and again, I think it's pretty natural when you go up there, you just want to, like, it's almost like you're trying to get it out.
Yeah.
I need to get all of it out so that you hear all the things that I wrote, and I did my best to remember everything and don't want to have to look at my notes, but I'm not actually pacing the joke right. I'm not letting it breathe. I'm not letting you think about it to try to figure, because if it's any kind of clever, you may need a second, be like, that's what you mean.
That's the problem. And sometimes, and so then I realized, like, I would I'm finding these, like, doing these exercises, whatever. One of the things is, hey, meet somebody, get a comedy buddy online. Went to the Facebook page, found this woman. She was from Pittsburgh, but it was Pittsburgh, Kansas.
Pittsburgh, Kansas?
Yes. It was Pittsburgh, Kansas. So she had taken classes from the other guy that it was mastering stand-ups. Apparently I didn't realize that guy did classes.
Okay.
And so then she sent me a video of one of her class recordings, and he was like $300. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. And you got 2 40-minute writing sessions with him.
That's awesome.
And then you got 3 group classes where you're building a 5-minute set, and then at the end you do a virtual show.
Okay.
And so they used to do it at Gotham. Well, now we do again. But so I met him, and I just kept getting feedback from people like that guy had worked with Gaffigan and Lena Dunham, and Michelle Buteau right now is blowing up, had been a student of his. So he's worked with all these people. He's been doing it since 1989 there.
That's incredible.
And he said to me one day, he's like, I don't know what you're trying to do with this, but he's like, I think the ceiling's as high as you want it to go.
That's great.
And it just caught me off guard. And I was like, oh, maybe this isn't just like Sunday softball.
Right.
Yeah.
When does it become, because you have to shift now into this is what my gig is.
Could it be? And I didn't know what it was. And I just I just treated it as such. And I just wanted to get better. And I would do a different 4 minutes every time, which I don't think is the best in retrospect.
I noticed that when I started doing it too, I just I write like every day.
Yeah.
So you want to do that. And it is the funny thing too, at least for me, was when people caught me writing that they didn't know what I was doing. Like, what are you writing down? And I was like, I'm writing down like comedy. They're like, you're doing what? I'm like sitting at the pool, like sitting here with a book. And they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, if I don't get it now, I have like a nugget of a thought of a premise of something.
Exactly.
I'm going to lose it. So I'm going to write it down.
That's the best thing to do. Yeah. So it's like that kind of stuff. Cause like when it strikes you in the moment, my best stuff is always stuff that strikes me in the moment versus forcing myself to sit down and write, which I do that too. But oftentimes, or like I have a system where I use a lot of apps on my phone. Okay. So I use Google Keep.
Google Keep.
Yeah, so it's like basically a digital Post-it note. And you create labels, you can include, and then you can kick it into a Google Doc. So you can start it as a brainstorming thing with a bunch of premises. Right. And I have a bunch of labels: fatherhood, big guy stuff, teacher stuff, and so I can do it by label.
Compartmentalizing it a bit.
Exactly. So then I can go at any given. So those are just random thoughts. Right. So I have a thing of random thoughts that I've never even touched, and then I have a couple running Google Docs where I just put the header title so that it creates a document outline. Yeah. With just a title of whatever I'm calling the bit. Right. So I can kind of see it, and now it's just this running. Yeah,
now like I have like a whole
Google
thing,
Doc
and then you can kind of like,
and that's where I write it out in long form. Right. So I put the random thoughts down, long form.
Yeah. Do you notice that like that? This is again being very, very new and doing it. Like what I find myself doing is it feels like I'm always cutting it back. Like it's like you don't need to be that wordy. Like get to it. You don't need to, especially when you're doing 5 minutes, because like you got to get there.
That's what's hard is like, because it's like a block of marble and you're trying to be like Michelangelo.
I'm trying to craft this into the right thing.
So I'll write it out as I've without trying to make it funny. So I'll write it all out, and then you go back and you say, oh, okay, is there a laugh line there? Or, oh, there's 2 lines and I haven't gotten to a laugh line yet. So something needs to give. So I like that kind of process. And then after a while, it's like anything, you start to see the zeros and ones a little bit. Yeah. Start to see the spin of the ball a little bit more. And then you can kind of, but it's fun. I mean, so now it's like that. Now I work for that guy. I'm the director of operations for the American Comedy Institute.
So how does that work exactly? So you have a comedy class, like a school. It's a comedy school, right?
It's a comedy school.
It's up in it's in
New York City.
Gotham. You do it out of Gotham.
So basically, we do our graduation show out of Gotham, but we had been doing it in person for as long as I had known him. And when I took over in May, we were transitioning for June to be our first month going back to in-person classes. Okay. So we rent, there's a building in right by Madison Square Garden, right by the train station, on 8th Avenue called Ripley Greer Studios. And they are just a space for performers and dancers and whatever. It's just,
so you just go and do
class. So we rent a classroom space there.
Oh, that's great.
And then, so then we do that. So then basically you get it's sort of the same thing. You get 2 private 40-minute writing sessions on Zoom it's like 2-week workshops. So it's a 2-week boom, nice little thing. The goal is for you to, build that 5-minute set, and then we get a lot of repeats. So each month,
So
I'd say
people
half
come
of
back
our
and do, like,
class,
another
half
5?
of our classes repeat
Okay.
from either last month or the month before,
Uh-huh.
and half is new. And it sort of just keeps cycling because he's, people like working with him. So,
Right.
you pretty much get the people that do it almost every month, and then you get new people. We cap it at about 15, 16 students per workshop.
I mean, the natural thing for me to ask here is like, so this blends your two lives together beautifully. Like,
Yes.
I love being a comedian. I love to teach. So
That's
now
it.
you said you were director of operations. Do you get to like also, because director of operations from like, I'm a director of sales operations,
Yes.
and I know that my job isn't like standing in
very
front of
far away from that. So it's very much emails and voicemails and scheduling, invoices, all the back end.
all the back end stuff. But you get to also do.
But I also get to host the graduation show at
That's
Gotham
awesome.
every month, and I get to I went to the in-person classes in June,
Mhm.
so I went up for the sessions, and then I if there's enough time,
Mhm.
then I get to run a set.
Oh, that's cool.
I get to run a set because then I get feedback, and then during the week when I'm scheduling his, if there's like a 30-minute gap between sessions. When I'm meeting with him, then we'll go over one of my sets. I'll show him one of my sets, and we'll look it over and
then get feedback.
So I don't do it as often as I should. So I think I'm going to start because I just things have been so hectic. Things have been doing. I've been doing
right,
so well.
let's be fair. So again, Jay's a teacher, but he has, because the beauty of teaching is you get the summers off.
Yes.
And so he got selected to go and do this thing called the Board Teacher Tour. So you went all over the country with a bunch of other teachers that are also comedians, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it was kind of weird. So that happened. I don't know. I wasn't writing teacher stuff when I first started. I was so sick of teaching.
You didn't want to talk about it anymore.
I needed to get away because I was the one everybody was leaning on because I was the tech savvy teacher.
Right.
So that everybody, when COVID happened, everybody was leaning on me. Before COVID, I had been not teaching. I was helping the teachers teach.
Oh, okay.
So we had gotten Chromebooks, we had gotten a new LMS, and this was all way before
You're kind of like
COVID.
getting them all like
I was
more
helping
modernized.
the Flintstones
so very much
meet
like
the
some of
Jetsons.
the operations type kind of thing, like that kind of
and I didn't know how much I would like that. I was like, oh well, I like being with the students, but I got a lot of satisfaction out of helping the teachers get crazy. Like I said, it was like the Flintstones meeting the Jetsons. So it was like
so wild, like fast
so
forward.
I would use it like, and I would use a lot of humor. I would I'm always known for my analogies. I'd always make analogies. I'd be like, because we had like Google Classroom and there's all these different virtual systems, and they're like, well, we're switching every one. I'm like, listen, McDonald's, Burger King, they all have a chicken sandwich. You know what I mean? Like, but I would make like those kind of analogies.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we use Google Classroom? I'm like, Google Classroom's like the microwave at the 7-Eleven.
Yes.
Here's a full kitchen.
Yeah.
And so like,
so
I would
they're like, oh, all right.
Yeah. And those are the kind of things I do in class just to help things. So like,
they tie together.
yeah. So that those skills were transferable. And then, but I was sick of it. I was helping everybody. I was the way I used to describe it is I was lighting myself on fire to keep everybody else warm.
Right.
I wasn't sleeping. I was neglecting my own family and children for a minute. Like we were all just kind of like, we're all together.
Right.
But like
not
two together. Yeah. And it was like, and it was just crazy. So it was just, I needed to step away. And I was working for Villanova in the evening. So I would work for O&J till like 2:30. And then I would work from 3. No, I would just, in my house, tech stuff. I would help their teachers learn Blackboard.
Yep.
3:30 to 11:30.
Yep.
So I'd be at Joel's in the sand pit. Yeah. On my computer because they only needed me if somebody had an issue. I just had to watch the help desk.
You were like a 24/7 technical.
Yeah, second shift. They had a lot of students who were having issues late at night when they were working on stuff, and they just wanted somebody there.
Right.
Rarely did I have to do a ton of stuff. So as long as I could be on the internet, I could really be anywhere.
So you were kind of like doing, again, double duty here.
Yep.
I'm still here.
And that was great. I was getting extra money.
That's great.
But it was too much. And so, I was just writing regular stuff. And then Lamar Todd, who's an amazing comedian out of Philly, who's also had been teaching.
He had been a teacher too.
He started doing a teacher show. He had me at Punchline. So a year after I got my first guest spot, I was on Punchline stage.
That's incredible. That's crazy. That is incredible.
So like when I first started, I was just going to Joel's every week, and then I went to Gap, and then this was like January, and then in May of that year, I got my first guest spot where I'm going to be tomorrow night at Great American Pub, and this guy Cisco was like, "Oh, you're really really good. Bring your best 5. I'll give you a guest spot.
That's incredible.
And then a year to the day of that, I got on Punchline with Lamar. So I had to write some teacher jokes. So I had a ton of stuff. I've been doing it 19 years.
Sure.
And then another teacher comedian was coming to Punchline that July. And I just messaged him out of nowhere. I'm like, hey, man, just so you know, I'm a local guy. I've done some teacher stuff there.
Yep.
And he didn't know me from Adam, but he called me and gave me 10 minutes on a show.
That's incredible.
And he's now the guy that I open for all over the place.
This is where, like, again, for people that might be watching this on, if I have the corporate masters, Digging in the Dome on Roku, Planet X Network. So it really, like, one of the things that I think is very important in this, and again, I think that sometimes it takes the right kind of person to be able to do it, is you have to, like, put yourself out there, ask.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, like, you don't ask and you don't, like, don't knock the hustle. Like, people that do that, well, even if they get shot down, and that's okay. If you don't ask the question, if you don't ask the opportunity, if you don't give me the shot to go and do something, then it's pretty much on me for not either doing enough to show you that I've got it. And because you're not going to necessarily, and I think that's one thing that some people might get frustrated with, comedians of all levels get frustrated with people that are kind of trying to move themselves forward, but because they got that promoter in them, they're saying, hey, give me a shot.
Yeah.
But then you have to put up or shut up. So you get put on this opportunity. You do a great job, and then now look, you're opening all over the place.
That show was instrumental because that guy Gasper Randazzo, who's a guy from Staten Island.
By the way, what a great name, Gasper Randazzo.
Great name.
Couldn't make that up.
Yeah, right. So he's been doing teacher stuff. So he'd been palling around with. He's been opening for a guy named Joe Dombrowski, who goes by Mr. D.
Mr. D.
And he had been on Ellen back in the day because he had a YouTube video that went viral.
Oh, all right.
Because he had kindergarten classes and he was giving them fake words. But he was giving them as if they were real words.
Oh, so they were trying to figure out the fake word.
And he was just
great.
acting as if it was a normal word,
right?
And just having so much fun. And Alan had him on a couple times. He had been doing stand up, and then Gasper was opening for him. And now Mr. D, he's just a full-time podcaster and comedian. He just goes around the country selling out. That's all he does now.
That's incredible.
And so Gasper then was following him on the road, and now Gasper's headlining the clubs that he had opened for him. Now Gasper's headlining, and now I'm his opener.
It's the circle of life. Eventually,
and he was happy to do it for me because he's like, Joe did this for me, and then he got a Netflix show. Not a comedy special, but he's on a Netflix,
he's on a show.
A version of like Big Brother.
Oh,
and it's dropping in January.
Okay,
so it filmed it last March, and it's dropping in January.
That's fantastic. That's great. Look, man, like you put credits on there, like I was on Netflix.
He's gonna blow up, and then I'm his guy. So
you're like.
So it's nice. We're actually doing a show together next Wednesday, the 30th, at the Staten Island Ferry Hawks Stadium. They're the single A. Yeah, it's
all right. That's incredible.
So we got about 400 tickets sold already, and it's fun.
So honestly, dead serious, dead ass. Like when you were like, I'm going to go on the sports comedy tour. I didn't know what you meant. Like, so then Jay is posting pictures of him doing selfies with like hundreds of people in the background. Yeah. I was like. You didn't say that you were doing a stadium tour, dude. Like, what?
Yeah, it was crazy. So that show. So Gasper was the one, and Gasper and like Joe, they're like teacher comedians as well. And then Gasper was like, "Hey, the guy opening for me on that Punchline show and I did was a guy named Tell Williams." And he's like, "Oh, Tell's been with the board teachers." And I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's a group of teachers that have been doing comedy, and it's like this big conglomerate." Well, they started as like social media videos, memes, then they're doing podcasts, and then they have a group of comedians that go around, and so they've been doing these theater tours.
It's incredible.
So they started in clubs, but now they're selling out theaters. The first show I did for them, I contacted them because I was like, I'd seen Tell. I said, hey, I asked Tell to put in a good word for me. I sent a press kit. I sent in a clip and a headshot. And
this is me,
Yep, this is me. I didn't know. Just shot in the dark, whatever. Shoot your shot.
Yep.
And he got back to me, and the guy's like, hey, we'd love to have you. We're going to be doing a show in February. Down in we're going to be doing a show in February down at this theater in North Carolina. Well, it got canceled because they were in Florida. They were all in Miami, and there was some kind of hurricane or storm at the time.
Okay.
They couldn't get a flight out. So I'm like, oh, I missed that shot. he added me to the tour for the spring. So then the spring came around, or no, February came around, and Kodak Theater in Rochester put me on like 3 shows to start. 1,700 people
That's
in the
incredible.
Kodak Theater.
Dude, how wild is that? You're going up there like,
I was so nervous. It was like,
you must shitting your pants.
I was. I went out there. I FaceTimed my wife when I went on stage before they opened the doors. And I'm just showing her the theater. And my 7-year-old was on there. She's like, Daddy, I'm scared for you.
You're like, no, you can't be scared for me. I'm scared for me. You're supposed to say, don't worry, Dad, you got this.
And so they were only giving me like 10 minutes, which was fine.
Yeah.
And so a good chunk of change for those 10 minutes.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, hell, I'll do that.
Oh yeah.
And then after that, the next 2 shows, they were like, oh yeah, you can do like 15 or whatever you want. So they increased my time, and then I went from only having 3 shows, then I got 3 more shows, and then I got added to a second tour they did in the summer, and I got 26 shows this summer.
That's incredible.
So that
you were traveling like all over
a
the
lot
place.
of the Midwest. There was a lot of Midwest. Yeah, we did upstate New York, Jersey, but then we went out to a couple places in Ohio. Yeah. We were out in Indiana. We were in Kentucky. We were just bouncing around.
Yeah.
Indianapolis. Yeah. So it was kind of fun. And then I ended up, that girl that I told you about that was my comedy buddy from Pittsburgh.
Yes.
She brought me out to Pittsburgh, Kansas.
Pittsburgh, Kansas.
Took a road trip with my family out.
Yeah.
And she got a place, a venue, produced a heck of a show, got
That's incredible.
people out there, and they, were able to put me up for a couple of nights in a hotel, let my family come.
Sure.
Super hospitable.
This is the, so if I remember correctly, this just happened, right?
Yes, just happened.
So Jay, bless you, sir. I don't know what compelled you to say, you know what? Let's drive. Let's drive from Philadelphia to
Pittsburgh, Kansas,
which is how many hours?
It's like if you drove through, I think it's like 18 hours. But like we did, so my wife and I have always liked road trips, even before we had kids.
Yeah.
And I want to do that with the girls. Like I think that's fun. They were great. They were, for being like 6 and 9 or 7 and 9. They were great.
Those are tough ages for kids. Yeah.
My wife was really good at planning it out. She had a whole Google Doc set up where we were going to get to each day.
Well, that's great.
We went to either a national park or some activity.
So you made sure that you kept it
everything.
going.
And my oldest wanted to go to as many states as possible. And I didn't know this. Is this a trend? Have you heard this before? When you're driving, my wife was having the girls throw a penny out the window when we cross state lines.
Never heard that before in my life.
And me either. And I was like, you're going to hit a car behind us.
Yeah, I know. It's like,
you know what I mean? Like, but the girls loved it. They did it. And that's fine. I don't think anybody got hurt.
I mean,
but we went through 12 states. I think we did 12 or 13 states in the trip. Went to the St. Louis Arch, went up the Arch. Like, it was cool. So it was just kind of a fun trip. That's what I wanted it to be. I was like, if I'm doing all this,
you don't want it to necessarily just be about.
Well, and people have a misunderstanding of it all. Like I was coaching baseball and basketball and football forever, and I was never home for like dinner time.
Right. Sure. Yeah,
and I was never home to get them off the bus. I was never. Right. And so now people are like, well, you must be never home. I'm like, dude, I was never home when I was coaching when I was making money doing peanuts, coaching 3 sports. And so after COVID, I stopped doing everything for the school. I used to read the names. I used to do the book for basketball. I stopped doing all of that. And so I'm home every day to get the girls off the bus. We have dinner, take them to piano.
Yep.
I go out at night.
I had a very similar, but different scenario. So the job that I worked before the company that I work for now, which is a global company that is headquartered out of Ambler, which is odd, right? Yeah. You're like, oh yeah, we have offices in Rotterdam and Germany. And it's like, I was like, wait, what? And you're in Ambler. Ambler. Ambler is where that's where the founder is. So anyway, I used to travel all the time. That was my job. Because I was in sales, planning, and operations, and they would have to make me. This is the mentality the company I work for was like, we're going to have a meeting. You have to fly to this place and then hang out for like 3 days and do that meeting. And it would be every month that I was gone. And Rochester was where their headquarters. So I used to go to Rochester all the fucking time. And so I was like, this was like 2 weeks out of the month I was gone. Yeah. So again, I didn't get to see my kids, and it was, they felt it. I felt it. And it was cool to get to a place where and partly I think it was COVID, because COVID forced everybody to go virtual.
Yep.
So the brilliant people at the company that I worked for, we were like, we can go virtual too. We could do this from anywhere. And they're like, there's no possible way. How are we going to sell payroll to a company if you don't send a man in a suit into a pizzeria that has 2 people that working for him? You know, like, how is that possible? You have to shake his hand and eat his pizza. But then we were like, no. And in 10 days, we were able to take that organization from being a completely on-site company to a completely virtual company.
Oh, wow.
And they had the best year financially they had ever had in COVID.
Yeah.
So like, it's, you know, it's like, hey, look, efficiency. Just kind of like what you were talking about with the school. It's like, hey, you don't need to, you know, we don't need to have the kids like hammering stone tablets with chisels and fucking hammers. You know what I mean? Like, this is how I'm going to take in my notes.
Yeah, it's a different world now. It's a different world. Yeah, but even with the, like, now with the comedy, I think sometimes people don't see, because I'm out every night somewhere. But now it's a business. Now to me, it's different.
Now you're getting money for
somewhere along the lines. I'm earning money from it.
Right.
You know, at a level that I had not anticipated, and that's cool. Like,
it is cool. It's incredible.
And the teacher tour is great. So, you know, board teachers have been great to me. They're awesome to me. And now I'm going to be co-host of
I was going to say the podcast. So you're doing
this. Yeah, it's going to be starting. I did a month's worth. They do on rotating hosts.
Right.
So I'm basically one of the September hosts.
The rotations.
And then I'll probably go back for like November or whatever.
Right.
Teachers Off Duty is
Teachers Off Duty is the name of the podcast.
Teachers Off Duty podcast.
So again, like, Jay just has like these little nuggets that he drops on you. Like, it's all casual and shit. And he's like, yeah, they got like 3 million TikTok followers or something like that. I was like, what?
Well, so they have like 3 million subscribers. Damn. If you add up, that's more if you add, like, there are like 900,000 on like TikTok.
That's
or
still
like
incredible,
whatever.
Man.
Yeah. But it's a new, so this will be season 4 for them. And what they did this year is they used to have TikTokers, like social media influencers were the hosts. Mm-hmm. And some of them also would come on tour because they had stories and stuff.
Okay.
But now
they weren't comedians?
They weren't necessarily trained comedians, like set up punchline comedians.
Yeah.
They just had a huge following. Mm-hmm. And so people would come out to hear them tell their stories.
Yeah, sure.
But now they decided that, the comedy tour's been doing so well. Mm-hmm. Let's have the teacher comedians come in.
And then they can be the hosts.
Them be the host for this new season.
I don't know. Like, I haven't heard I'm not judgmental of anybody's stuff, because again, whatever you like, and there's like literally, we're blessed because we have had a tremendous amount of success in the time that we've done this. We've got huge growth on YouTube. We're on Roku now. Like, everything's been great. But I also recognize that there's like a sea of podcasts out there. Like, literally hundreds of thousands.
Everybody in their second cousin has a podcast.
I started a podcast. Shocker, right? You're breathing air. Like, what do you want?
That's true.
There's so many of them. So like, you being able to separate yourself or being in something like that is really impressive, because it does give you and whatever they're doing, whatever you're doing, like, look, I don't know what the TikTokers, you said they had really good stories. They're obviously popular for a reason.
Yeah.
Also popular on TikTok for some reason. My daughter, like, she laughed at this. It was funnier than anything that I've ever said to her.
Yeah.
It was just a piece of bread falling over.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Like, I don't understand why that's hilarious.
Yeah. And like a lot of the influencers, when I talk to them, because I've been on tour, some of them have like 2 million followers, that kind of thing. Yeah. And it's like, it's about, the goal is to niche down, like, find whatever your niche is.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
And hammer that. And so, I've been trying to play with what that is. And for me personally, like, when I talk about like my comedy, like, a lot of my stuff drew from my own family, being raised by 2 moms in 80s Scranton at a time when it was don't ask, don't tell, because somebody, if they see something, they're going to say something.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, growing up with that, and then I found out my biological dad was also gay. My mom's brother's gay. So I have like this whole big gay family.
You have a big gay family.
Yes, big gay family. Before it was cool, before Ellen was straight. Ellen was still straight, all of that stuff.
He liked Smashing Pumpkins when they recorded Gish.
That's right.
Nobody liked them then.
It's like, I have all of that. I have this whole thing of like, here I am, a heterosexual guy, married to a woman with kids, but I didn't have that stencil growing up.
Right.
So a lot of my stand-up is, am I a good dad? How do I know? Like, here's my background. So then I have an autistic daughter. So I talk a lot about special needs, and I always want her to be like the hero in the story. And I want, and I love talking about her as well.
So I got a question about that, because I think, and I've seen it a couple of times when we've been doing mics, like, people will like, because again, everything is in the. I don't think anyone's ever mean spirited when they say it. I don't think people are doing things in the through the lens of trying to be funny. Yeah. But they'll say things like your autistic jokes are great because they are really relatable to your experience, and they, again, to your point. Your daughter always comes out looking like the winner in the story. Yeah, exactly right. But not everyone's creating autistic jokes like that. So does that impact you in any way? Does that make you feel a kind of way or not? No, I don't know. I mean, because I use that same muscle from like hearing people trash gay people my whole life. Right, exactly. And I was like, they were, those are the same people that love my mom's pancakes. Like, right, they're ignorant. Do her pancakes taste bad now that you know she's gay? It's like that. So that same skill for me of hearing people bash gay people when I'm like, oh, they're talking about my mom, my dad, and my uncle. Right. So like that same thing. It's like, oh, it's just, it just got to roll off. Yeah, it just rolls off. Yeah, you get it. And so that my comedy is to combat that. So like, one of my setups now is that like I hear a lot of guys using autism as a punchline, and and that's like I think they're jealous because my daughter sees the world in a state they take drugs to visit. And that was sort of the joke that I wrote to kind of combat that. And I'm like, they call it a trip. She's a permanent resident. Yes, and I've been playing with this dual citizenship tag now and stuff. I really liked that you added that because I noticed that I've seen that joke actually kind of evolve, which is kind of cool for me. Yeah, so like I'm trying to build an hour around her. I'm trying to get up so that I have like a whole stuff just on that because I'll tell you, I can't tell you how many people come up to me after shows, parents, speech therapists, grandparents, like just I have cool moments with people, like real moments. I had one woman at Helium come up to me and she's like, I needed to laugh about it. Like I needed to laugh. Well, your point, like I think that people say it a lot, but it can't be understated. I think is that doing comedy is a way for you to be able to deal with pain and to be able to like kind of get around it. Like, can I find something in here that gives me the silver lining? And I think that's really a beautiful thing to be able to say, because you said like, even when you were younger, and you were, kind of, moving around and you wanted to make friends, you used comedy to be able to bridge the gap. That's right. Well, they said, comedy is tragedy plus time. That's it. Exactly right. Yes. So it's like, you got to process it first. And I think sometimes at open mics, you hear people don't process it first. They're still processing. I've heard really good things like Mike Birbiglia is a guy I look up to. He's very funny. I really enjoy him. He was probably the guy I was watching his special when I made the decision to do it. Go for it. That's great. And one of the things he talked about is he has his own journal. That's his own personal journal he writes in every night. And that's the journal where you process your feelings so that then you can have your joke book and you can take it over there later. But that's, so a lot of me is just channeling that. I'm trying to like my own, just trying to be vulnerable. I'm trying to educate. I'm trying to help people be relatable to the families who have autism, or the people who just know someone with autism. And we have my wife, her brother, her nephew's got, and everybody autism. Is, and it's so now it's this area where can I somehow educate and entertain at the same time, right? And that's what I've been playing with, and it does, and like I said, I get to have these great moments with people after, and people really love it how I humanize it, and make it vulnerable, and I enjoy doing that. And then teaching now, obviously, I do a lot of stuff on teaching, parenting, just in general, like how you don't really know, like how do you know if you're doing a good job? So I just love playing with my life. Like I just, well, it's good because it's your experience, right? And it's the thing that's going to speak most true to you. Yeah. And I do like, so I think that, again, some of the feedback that I heard yesterday when we were doing the mic was like, hey, make it, that is about you. Make it more about you. I hear you say that a lot, which is really, I think, an important part of being able to develop your voice and be able to actually resonate with the material more. It's easy to say, and I do it. I'm not going to say that I don't. Like, I see something in the news, like the one I did the other, I don't know if you were there. Will Levis, the quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. Okay. I said, I saw the whitest thing that's ever happened ever. He got an endorsement deal with Hellman's Mayonnaise for life. It's like incredibly white things, but that's nothing to do with me. It's just funny. Yeah. Well, and there's a place for like one of the funnest things. So there's the weekday
Comics is a podcast for
Very funny two dudes.
And those two guys, when I was going to Joel's originally, those were two guys that I just watched in awe of, like
Dan D'Aprile
and Dave Premiano.
I said his name wrong. Sorry, buddy.
No, he has a whole. Yeah, it's funny. He's very funny jokes about it. But watching the two of them, I was just in awe of them. And so actually I'm on a show with them on Saturday in Hershey. And because they're just such great joke writers, they're super smart. So they do the show where they do the show. Dave was doing the show where he was just coming up on open mics and he was just doing news like Jay Leno monologue headline stuff.
Right.
And I like that. When I went on their podcast, they at the end of their podcast go back and forth.
Right. They use the headlines to like actually tell jokes.
Yep. And so I did it. I wrote 19 or 20 of them. And that was different for me because that's not typically what I do, but it was a lot of fun to do that.
Hi. What's up? We're recording. Hello. This is my wife, Colleen.
Hi, how are you?
This is Jay.
Hi, Jay.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
What's up?
Sorry.
We're in the middle. That's right. Bye. See, normally Kevin's here, and what Kevin does is he says, "Remember to lock the door." And 2 times now, that door's opened. One for my daughter, Sam, who has interrupted this podcast on so many occasions. You may remember the time where she had stepped in dog poop and put it right next to me. That was awesome. And Colleen, though, is very, she's not usually the interrupter. She had 2 hard-boiled eggs and lots of wine today.
Nice.
So she's trying
for her.
She deserves it. We're dealing with a fruit fly epidemic. In this fucking, we figured out the culprit. There was a bag in the garage that had stuff in it, and there's just like, so we got rid of the bag. We've been like getting rid of food and like fucking. The
colonies are coming. I remember I was at her sinus, and that was the only baby bio I took the easiest bio, and that was like the big thing was a fruit fly experiment. That's the only time I've ever thought about fruit flies.
They suck. Anyway, so going back to what we were talking about, you were talking about Dan and Dave, these really super talented guys.
Yeah, so I got to write those kind of jokes because I think it's fun. It's fun to do those stuff. And I think you should play. Like, I've played with so many styles of jokes.
Yeah.
I don't think you've ever heard me do my milk joke.
No, I've not heard the milk joke.
So milk joke's a fun one. I pull that out so sparingly. So people still talk to me about it because I did it once at Joel's. At an open mic, it crushed because it was like so different from what I had done, and it's basically called like a list set joke.
A list set joke. Okay.
So it's like basically what you do is you're listing stuff.
Okay. Okay.
So you have some kind of premise, and then everything from the setup, then everything else is just a punchline. And so like I heard a guy do this once where he's like, yeah, my mom's on another diet. She's tried them all. And then he just went on Wikipedia and looked up every diet and he just started naming them. And then after a while, it's kind of like Family Guy does this where they harp on something over and over and it eventually becomes funny.
Yes. 100%. They're like when he whenever Peter hurts his knee, he's like,
and it's just over time.
You're like, okay, for the first like 4 seconds, you're like, and then eventually
it just goes on, that's funny.
All right, you're not giving up.
So I was reading Steve's book, Steve Rosenfield's Mastering Stand-Up book, and I was like, oh, he does different chapters, and one was that style of joke. So I was like, all right, let me write one. And the whole premise is like, you know, I know what you're thinking, and yes, milk has done this body good. I was like, people make fun of me, but I love it all. And then for the next 2.5 minutes, I list everything that has ever had milk in it. And then like every third one, it'd be like milk bones or muscle milk, milk of magnesia, titty milk. And it's just like you just keep on rolling. Harvey milk, you know, and it's just like, and then it's like
Harvey milk's a good one.
And you just like keep rolling with these for like as long as you can.
As long as you go, just keep on going, and people will continue. And again, because it's building,
Yeah.
It's continuing to gather.
And
that
sometimes
steam.
you repeat them. I'll be like chocolate milk, and then like I'll do strawberry milk, vanilla milk, chocolate milk again. You know, and you just do that, and you just listen them, and like So I love experimenting with that because like, and I have jokes that I've told that just haven't worked, or I have ones on the back burner that are either too dark for me. Because Dan Deprecation is great with that. He and I write together a lot, and he'll tell me like when I'm at a mic and I do a joke, and he's like, we just don't believe you. I did a joke about
because it was
outside of my persona,
right?
And you got to experiment. I mean, even Picasso painted a bowl of fruit. You know
of
what
course.
I mean? Like so I think you totally should experiment with all of that. I just know that the stuff that I can put in a show and justify getting paid the amount of money I'm getting paid. Sometimes I know that I can't. You take
can't
a
veer
risk.
off, and I'm not going to turn hard left and go into prop comedy.
Yeah, I know. Like I have 45. I have probably 45 to almost 60 minutes now of material I can tell at anywhere. It's
the evergreen material you can
that
use
I
wherever
can
you want.
do. Some of it's not. Some of I wish it was evergreen. Some of it probably was going to have a shelf life. But for right now, like I had a really good one for a while that involved the Will Smith, Chris Rock thing.
The slap. Yeah,
that was really good.
Slap.
And I still have the joke. I just can't. It doesn't go on.
Well, it's because it's like so far removed now. It's like
it is. So the only time I tell the end of that joke now is like when I hear another comic mention it. If somebody earlier in the night mentions
then you say, that's my end.
Then I'm like, if I hear that, and I heard it tonight, but I only had a 10-minute set, so I didn't have enough time to do it. But it fits in with my daughter and autism. It's like a 4-minute bit that I can squeeze in at the end if I have more time.
If you have time, yeah.
I enjoy. So I enjoy writing those jokes, and I've had dark ones that I've one about coaching my daughter's like Challenger Baseball League, which is like a special needs thing.
Yeah, sure.
Which again, that's already kind of a messed up name.
Yeah.
Those kids like.
All right.
But like, all right,
we get it. All right,
So I like playing with some of those things, and you got to play, you got to swing and miss. It's hard for me and now you get to a point, and you'll see like when I go to a mic, if it's a mic I haven't been at or something, you feel like you got to be good, even when you want to just kind of work stuff out. Yeah. So like yesterday for me was a perfect example. That was like the first time I just said, let me tell a story I've never said out loud before.
I like the story. It definitely has something.
And I was like, and I know I don't have any, and I knew I didn't have anything, but I was like, well, I'm not going to sit here and tell a joke everybody else has already heard a million times that I know is done.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, because it was in fairness, like in the mic that on Wednesday was just like, it was all
comics.
All comics. So, and it was all people that have been in that particular look, the tuned up before. These were all like, this was like a group of friends from high school that ended up in the same bar, and they were the only ones in it. Yeah. And they were like, okay, let's just go hang out and talk about, talk shop, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It was like an open gym. It's like an open gym where all the guys who are trying to get on the court were there. And they're like, well, how can we take advantage of the fact that we don't have anybody to play in front of, but let's make worth it. Yeah. So I thought it was great. And so for me, like fun. That, so then I'm like, okay. And because what I'll notice now is on a lot of these podcasts, people will say like, I'll hear comedians talk about their process. Like I listened to The Good One. Yeah. And so he'll say stuff like, writing on stage. And I couldn't understand the concept. Like in my head, I would keep hearing all these comics say, well, I write on stage. I write on stage. Mm-hmm. And now I'm starting to get like last night was for me, I started to write on stage because I got too early tags in the joke that I did not intend. Because I've written that story out as I said it last night, more or less, because that is what happened. Right. It was literally a story. You just told it from like start to finish. Yeah. And then you just naturally find moments where you can interject. So like I had a BYOB tag. Yep. And then I had a play off of the Stretch Hummer. And it's like those were two. Danny Trejo even made an appearance. Yeah. So like those were two tags that I did. And then the end, I was kind of happy with the end because I was like, oh, how do I misdirect that enough? Mm-hmm. And I was okay with how that part ended, where I was like, oh, okay, it's good because everybody should think that Danny Trejo did that to me. Right. But really, what happened? I'm like, yeah, the main streets of Pottstown. Actually, no, it was Franklin Street. Okay. And like then boom. Specifically Franklin Street. So like, but then that's the other thing that's funny about comedy that I've realized, the tricks are the specificity, the specific numbers, specific names. The actual, this like is on Franklin Street. You know that place. Funnier when you can be specific. music.
Yeah.
You know, and
shit, dude, we used to do that when we were in music. We would be you do like a play on a word of a song. It's like, instead of saying was it 441, the Tom Petty song, American Girl? I used to cover that song.
Yeah.
And I do like 422 or something like that. You know, like 9, you know, like you'd have to like, you just play it into because everyone's like, oh yeah, I know that road, you know?
Yeah. So it's like, that kind of stuff. So much fun. I love, like, for me, it's like this game. It's this puzzle that I want to solve. It's like, you know, making something funny. Or even tonight, I was doing this 7 for 7 thing, and it was, you know, a crowd. I figured some of them had seen me before because I do so many shows at Joel's now that it's cool because it forces me to try new stuff. Yeah. So I was trying this new parenting thing with being a birthing coach. Like I thought coach. This is new. Told me I was They told me, well, they did. They told me I thought I was just going to go in and with a cigar in my mouth and pace the waiting room. Oh yeah, read a newspaper. And they're like, no, you're the birthing coach, and I'm like, I would have brought my awkward shorts long and a clipboard, but I didn't know. Yeah, and so this whole concept of treating it like a sports metaphor, and so some of it was okay. I tried it out loud, and I was like, okay, that line didn't hit, and then I just, because you gotta try new stuff, and you're like, okay, but all of the other stuff around it. If I started strong,
have you had moments where like you've done, done something and you were like, oh man, like you realize that was just like at the moment you're like, it didn't, because I mean, obviously it happens all the time to me, but you know. Yeah,
the worst one that I ever did was learning the difference between an open mic joke and a real crowd joke. Like, yeah. I saw Keith Purnell, who's a great dude. He's out of Delaware. Oh yeah. You know, been on like Last Comic Standing. He's been around for like 30 some years. Hysterical. He gave me an opportunity to do one of my longest sets. I think I did like 15 minutes when I very first started, and in front of a guy named Mark K. So it was him, me, and Mark K. So he hosted. I went up second, then Mark. And so then when I went up, I had this Lunchables joke that I'm sure you've heard me tell. Yes. But there's a tag after it that I now don't say anymore, where I was like, you know, the joke is that it turns out I'm likable, I'm lovable, I'm lunchable. And then I'm like, oh, Lunchables have evolved. Have you heard me tell this part where I'm and I'm like, they come with a Capri Sun and dessert. Yes. And then I allude to that it also makes me climax.
So that did not.
That groans, audible groans from the audience, and that's when Keith pulled me aside after. He's like, "Dude,"
he's like, "Not that, not that.
You don't go that far." And I just, you know, that was me not knowing, not like because you.
Well, do you think it was? So, do you think that that is partly because of what you said before, which is you found what you are? And that's not necessarily what you are.
Yep, exactly. And that's also like a good open mic joke, because like I would get crazy. I got like a huge response the first time I did that joke, but that was because it was the comics in the back of the room who found it was ironic that I told the joke like that, because they've been seeing me.
Yeah, we never
and
expect
they wouldn't
that
have anticipated.
Right.
And so the big laughs I were getting were from these like comedians in the back of the room. Yeah. And so I was using that to be like, oh, it's a good joke. Right.
And you were like, oh, no, I didn't realize that the reaction was really more about how out of bounds it was for me to my friends that know how I do this.
So, you know, and that's the part you don't realize the difference of like when you do your first show and you're in front and you could tell something that wouldn't have landed in an open mic and it might crush in front of a real audience. Right. And that you just can't know. Right. And that's why the open mic is like, it's so necessary, but it's also a cautionary tale.
It really is. And I think that sometimes, I think we talked about this the other day, I've seen people, you know, in the very short period of time that I've been doing it, I've seen people come and go, and I've seen what's happened to them in those, because open mics are tough because there are a predominantly comic audience. And even if they're your friends, they're still going to be really tough critics because they know that's kind of what you need. They need to know, they want, if you get them, and I've gotten them now a couple of times, like I feel like I'm getting my momentum, or I'm getting them to laugh at me. So I know that, like, all right, I'm on the right track. There's something there. But when you're up there, they're the harshest critics. So if you don't have steel in you and you've done it like 3 or 4 times, it becomes, you be like, I don't want to do it anymore because I don't feel like what I'm doing is actually working.
Yeah, it's hard. It was so hard. And like, I remember I would only share my recordings with just a few people that I knew. But I think that helped me because I would get that feedback.
Yeah, tell me what do you like about it? What do you not?
And it was hard to do. It's like when you do your own writing and showing it to someone, like that can be hard, but it's
exposing.
Yeah. So now I write with, there's a couple comics that I meet with almost weekly to where we pitch jokes to each other and write or all have written and then share it with them. And that's been huge because then you get a different perspective, different people. And that just helps because it's like you want to get better. I want to get better. I want to be the best. I want to be the best version of myself at it.
Right.
I want to be doing my own shows and people coming to see me. And I want everything I'm seeing my buddy Gasper get and that Joe D guy get, like, and some of those higher influencers. I'm like, it'll be my time eventually.
Yeah, dude, it matters about the motivation. It matters about the fact that you're putting the work in. Like that's just like anything else.
Yep.
You got to get good at it. It's going to take time, and obviously you're on the right track. So
yeah, it's a whirlwind. I can't, and I needed it because I was kind of lost in teaching. I thought was my thing,
right?
And it is, but this is something special. This is like
teaching's great, but you've been doing it for 19 years. So if someone's like, hey, you could teach, or the O2 arena, and you're like, well,
so it's like, so it's like, I think it'll be a both hand. I don't think I'm gonna not teach. I'm too far in with my pension.
Of course, yeah. No,
but but it would be. It's fun to think about. It's fun to like and it's nice because I'm on sabbatical now till January, so I'm not teaching till like January 18th. I don't have to report till.
That's great.
And I'm taking grad classes, so that way I get half pay and some other benefits to that. Because every 10 years you're allowed to take a sabbatical. You can do a full year. I didn't want to do a full year. I'm going back to teach Latin, and the Latin program needs me in there because otherwise it won't survive because we need someone at the lower levels to get people excited about it.
About Latin.
And, that's
the root of all languages, man.
It was funny enough when I was at Ursinus, I got my junior year, I got paid to stay and do a summer fellowship. And my research was how to implement implement Latin at public middle schools. And I went around talking with administrators of schools that had Latin or that had gotten rid of Latin and sort of developed a plan. So now that's what I get to do. So it's cool that I'm getting to do that. And I like doing that. And then, that gives me ammunition. I want to stay in the classroom. If I'm going to keep with this teacher niche of comedy,
sure.
I need to be
this is material building, right? Too. You get
it's a fine line. Like, don't get me wrong. Like when I'm in the classroom, I'm not there doing a set. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like when I tutored Latin today.
You didn't do your homework. I got no respect. I tell you.
Right. But like when I'm in there, like today I tutored Latin and like, I'm like, serious as could be. I'm very smart. I have no overeducated, as a matter of fact.
Overeducated. I got too much in here.
And so, but like I'm very serious about my job. So I would think it would people who had me as a student, they probably could see it because I crack jokes every once in a while, but usually it's dry humor.
Right.
To see if they're paying attention.
Right.
Or I'll say something ridiculous just to see if they're tuning me out or listening.
Yes.
But for the most part, I'm like very into teaching and language and stuff like that. So, I like doing that. But yeah, they'll say some crazy stuff or, just sitting in meetings. I've gotten so much material on the meetings we have to go.
Of course.
And all the stuff we have to do. Like we had pot training. I do a bit on pot training.
Pot training?
Yeah, we had to learn about all the different ways.
Guys, pot training. Let's go in the teacher's lounge. We're out to the door.
They're showing us all the different devices they could be using and how they look like, look like a pen or it might look like something.
Yeah.
So we had to learn all the different ways they're ingesting drugs.
Oh, that's great.
So it was great. So I have like at least a 2-minute bit on that.
I do, that you would not have had you not been in that natural.
If I hadn't been in that room.
Yeah.
So so those things are fun. You're walking a line. I never talk about any specific kids
people or you can't do that.
But at the same time, I mean, I've been doing it for a while, and I've done shows for the school.
Yeah.
I've done shows for the PTA. The superintendent's been at some of my shows.
Yeah. So so
it's like it's like whatever. I'm not doing anything. I flirt with stuff like school. Active shooter drills and but tastefully in a way that breaks the tension.
You know what? That's masterful right there. A tasteful active shooter joke.
Active shooter
That's tough to do.
Yeah. So because I like implanting tension, but then you got to be able to release it.
Yeah.
You know? Yep. And so nothing gets a butthole tighter.
Oh yeah.
Than mentioning
with
active shooter drills.
Yeah. Sandy Hook. Always where's he going with this?
So it's like, yeah. That's where the specific nature of it probably wouldn't work in your favor, but
Indeed.
But yeah, but it is a challenge. But yeah, so I found ways to do that because now I actually have like 3 separate active shooter jokes in that bit now that at first I was nervous to do, and now it's pretty much part of my set.
Well, I mean, if you're testing it out in the Midwest and they're all right with it, then you're pretty good to go, you know?
Yeah, you're right. So it's like it's one of those things where you take some risks, or even when I do a lot of the jokes about my parents and gay, it usually takes a minute. There's immediate attention. Like, or when I mention
and then
so I'm like, I was raised by 2 moms. That's right, lesbians.
Yeah, it's like
and then usually it'll be like they'll hush, and I'll be like, that's exactly what it sounded like in 80s Scranton, guys. Congratulations. You've come a long way.
Yeah.
Or somebody will cheer, and I'll be like, that's not what it was like in 80s Scranton.
You can go either way, really.
Yeah, so it's like you learn how, because when I would put that out, I was so nervous as a kid to tell people.
I'm sure,
So it's terrifying. Like now it's kind of cool.
Especially back then.
Liberating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now it's liberating to tell my story.
Yeah.
And so, so now you get comfortable. You get comfortable with pauses over time.
Yeah.
You get comfortable with maybe they don't react to a certain thing the way, but it takes a long time and a lot of reps to get there.
I think I told you before, Nikki Glazer, I went and saw Nikki Glazer and talked to her, and she said, I only got one piece. I told her, I'm like doing stand up. She's like, okay, I only have one good piece of advice to you. It's like the only piece of advice that I've ever taken that really matters. And she said, it doesn't matter. Quit immediately. You're not funny. I can tell. I got a radar for this shit. I don't have the midichlorians, the Jedi midichlorians. No, she said, it doesn't matter if you're funny, really. It just matters that you do it a lot. And that resonated with me. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, because you could be really, inside of you, very, very, very funny. But if you don't refine what you're doing, if you don't continue to practice and take the at-bats and do all that stuff, you're not going to get good.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
But that's just it. And that's why my wife, that's like everybody says my wife must be a saint. She is. Because I do. Because like I said, I go out every night, but I have to. And we make it a thing together. So like tomorrow night, she's coming out to my shows. Like once a week, she usually get a babysitter, or my mom takes over and they come out. Or my mom came out last Wednesday with me. So that way, we're
you're making it all work together, and to your point, I think that you said earlier that you're taking you've got the self-awareness to recognize hey, look, I know what it's like to not be engaged, to be present with my family, and I'm not going to let that happen again. So whatever I'm going to have to do, whatever happens, right, I'm going to make sure that I'm including them in the journey with me. It's going to be
intentional. I'm more intentional with my time. It's funny. I even think about how the day went today. It's like, okay, my wife's back to work. My mom's a cafeteria worker, so she was kind of back to work for a little bit. So by 8:00, we're up, and the girls, I'm making sure they have breakfast and doing the dad stuff. But then once they're all settled, I'm on the computer doing the stuff for the ACI, the comedy school. And then my daughter, her training wheels broke on her bike, and I am not handy.
Me neither.
So then she's like, and so I was sitting there on the computer, and you can get lost in it. Obviously, we all
do you go to a YouTube hole on how to fix a tricycle? Or
I could even just get lost in work for the school. I could be doing graphic design stuff and get lost in posters for them. But she's like, well, Daddy, I thought we were going to do my training wheels. And I'm like, oh, so I'm like, I popped right up. I'm like, oh yeah, I am not handy. And so this Frozen bike that I got her 2 years ago, she finally wants to ride it. So I'm like, well, whenever she wants to do something, I'm never going to say no.
Right.
So I'm out there. I had 2 sets of training wheels because I ordered a pair, but I couldn't find them. Now, and then my mom went out and bought them.
Was this post broken?
Her wheels broke. So then I was like, oh, I need
a replacement.
Can I just replace the wheels, or do I have to replace the whole bracket?
Right.
And I'm getting into it, and then the things didn't work. And I'm I recorded I ended up getting 12 minutes of me record. So I'm going to eventually cut it down to something eventually. And it worked. I finally got it, but I had to take pieces from both sets to MacGyver it together to make it work, because I couldn't take off the brackets because it was these special brackets they made for that bike.
And you're just like,
and I'm like, I have to do this for her. I can't not.
I'll for as long
I
as
will
it takes.
feel like
I'm
such
going
a
to,
failure if I don't
yeah.
get this done. I was like, you've accomplished so much that you shouldn't be able to accomplish. You can do these training wheels.
Yes, and you did it.
And I did it.
You did it. It took a bit, but you figured it out.
And then her and my other daughter, we went around the neighborhood so she could practice using them. And
cruising around on the bike,
waiting for them to break. I'm just waiting for the wheels to fall off.
Because you're just like, so did the pride of I did it, then the
Will
terror,
they
the abject
actually
terror.
work? Yes. Have I put my daughter in harm?
How's the bike on fire? I don't even understand how this can be happening.
That's right.
Now.
That's right. And so like I got that together. We went for a little walk, which was great.
Awesome.
And then I'm like, okay, next thing you know, I'm like, I had a meeting, and then I'm taking my daughter for blood work, and then we're doing an open house. And then next thing you know, I'm tutoring for an hour, and then like, oh, it's time to go to Joel's. And it's like, it's just the days just happen.
Yep.
But everything flows. And I used to, when I was doing all the other stuff, I would get double booked. I would be racing. I'd be so tired, and I'd be like so sick of running one from the other.
Right.
Whereas since I stopped doing all of that noise,
that stuff, right,
that I thought I wanted to do, but it really was unrequited love, it felt like.
Yeah.
And now this stuff just flows. Like everything just
It's funny how
works.
like it all fits into place.
It's so many moving pieces, and that's just I'm a firm believer you're supposed to follow, like there's a tuning fork.
Yeah,
and
for
I'm
sure.
just following the tuning fork.
Yep.
And all systems are a go right now for this.
That's
so
awesome.
It's like,
good for you, man.
You know, so I'm gonna ride this train till the training wheels fall off.
Of the tuning fork until it stops reverberating.
That's it.
I did. So this is a non sequitur, complete non sequitur, but I did hear about a sublingual drop that you can take that will help you regain hearing. And I'm not doing it though until my kids leave for college. So
is that a tincture?
Yeah, I used to like this, and then apparently it like if I have tinnitus because I've been a musician my entire life, so I've been sitting next to speakers and playing drums and shit like that. So my ears are completely messed up. Like they're fucked.
They're not good,
so, but the benefit is I've got a 16-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a wife. So it's good to be able to like have the natural muffle that occurs.
Yes. Oh, well, that's why I can tune stuff out from being a teacher, because you don't want to hear the stuff they talk about in between classes.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
No.
So and I'm really good at tuning stuff out, and so that my wife hates that because sometimes I tune things out too hard at home.
Oh yeah, that seems yeah. Were you listening to me and you're like,
what? Yeah. I used to just get in the habit of saying what. And like, even though I heard her, I would say what.
Oh, just to poke the bear? Oh, man.
Well, no, I would just, it was like a reflex.
Just a reflex. Oh, it was like more like a tick, like what?
Yeah. But I had heard her, but I was like sort of half listening.
And then you have to like go back and be like, no, I did. And this is what you were saying to me.
Yeah.
So like you have to like,
and she's
validate.
like, then don't say what. Yeah.
And yeah. You're like, I'm sorry.
So it's like, yeah. So
it's not my fault.
But yeah, no, so it's all flowing together. I want, the dream is that my wife and I, when we can retire from teaching, that we're just traveling, and I'm going to tell jokes at night. We get to see the country, the world. And
so there's a open mic comedian, nice guy, Joe Bell. You know Joe? Older dude. And he was on the same show as I was at the Comedy Cabaret in Doylestown.
Oh, cool.
So we were talking. And
is that Angry Joe?
I don't know. No. You mean Old Joe? No. Old Joe. I'm actually terrified because I haven't seen this dude in like 3 months.
Okay. All right.
I don't know where he is, but I hope he's all right.
All right.
But no. This is Joe Bell, different Joe. And he said, I was like, well, like, he's like, I'm retiring. He's like, he said similar things to you, but except he said, all I want to do, my whole goal in this is to become a cruise comic. He just wants to do cruise comedy.
That's hard now because like the crew, I talked to a lot of comics. I've worked with a lot of comics that are cruise ship comics, and it's not like back in the day. Now it's like, well, it depends on the cruise ship, but they're pretty popular now, but you have to have like 3 to 5 different 30-minute sets.
Right, because you have the same people that you're like,
yeah. So you have to have like family friendly, clean ones, but you also have to have a late night.
Yep.
And so the comics who have most successful are the ones who have like 2.5 hours of material.
Wow.
And it's like I'm building up to an hour now, and it's I'm like almost 2.5 years in now. Like that, even that is miraculous to get that kind of. But I mean, people write like once you get into a rhythm, it's you can write. And write. So that's what my hope is, like over the next 5 years. Yeah. I mean, I'll be teaching for at least another 10 to 15 years. So in that range, the goal would be to have enough so that we could do stuff like that, or I could just be playing clubs around the country and
don't see the world. Like you said, if you're a big fan of road tripping, like that's cool.
That's the goal. So it's just like, I don't need to be a household name.
As long as we don't get like the Tyranna Omega COVID variant, whatever is next.
Right. But, I would love to do that. I'd love to do some acting. That would be my next thing. I'd like to do some acting.
Well, I see it's a natural thing. You see like a lot of comedians do kind of move into that. One of the guests on this show previously, really by accident, but still a guest nonetheless. We still count him. Bobby Kelly. You know Bobby Kelly? Yeah. He was on our show. Greg Stone was on. Do you know who Greg Stone is?
I know Greg Stone. Yeah.
Of course you do. Greg, he was a guest. Actually, it was Greg and Anthony DeVito and oh my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting this last dude's name. Shit. I'll put it in post. But they were on, and Greg just sent my Zoom link to Bobby Kelly, and fucking on pops Bobby, and then he hung up on us like 3 minutes in. But it was great. He was on the show, but he did that. Like, so he was in. He was been a Boston comedian, like New York comic, really, really talented, very, very funny. And then he got into acting, and he ended up doing that show with Dennis Leary, Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll on FX.
Oh, that's right. That's crazy.
And he was in a couple of movies and stuff like that. So it's like it seems like it's that natural kind of Dane Cook. Like he actually did serious acting too.
Yeah.
That movie Mr. Brooks with Kevin Costner, I think
that's
it was.
Right.
Remember
that's
that?
Funny.
He was the serial killer
I
movie?
thought about that, yeah. And Waiting. You remember that movie?
Waiting, yeah. Yes. Yeah, dude. Like people, again, first it's the comedian. The comedians are, I think, naturally kind of good actors.
Yes.
You have to be.
Yeah, and so I was that fascinating. So like all that whole world, that's sort of my next goal. My year 2 goal after the open mics was social media,
right?
And that's
start to
and build that up and make sure I had them on all the platforms and had ones for comedy, and then start curating that. And now I'm just at a level now where I'm starting to take off with that. So I'm hopeful when the podcast, so my Teachers Off Duty podcast drops, that even if I can pull some of those, I'm about to hit 15,000 probably by tomorrow, hopefully. So
that's great.
I started with none like a year and a half ago.
Well, it is when you start and I started doing the podcast well before I started doing comedy, like stand-up comedy, but it is like, I've got 5, and you're like,
it's so difficult. It's like how building that up was like such a long system, but now I started making these memes with the teacher context.
Oh, right. You showed something that was very funny.
They're like crushing. So it's like,
you find the thing. You said the niche. You find the
thing, and then you just
riding it.
You ride it, and you mix in other things in different styles, and So that's I've had a lot of fun playing with that, learning it. Yeah, it's cool.
It's a grind, and you have to be consistent with it. All right, so. One last question, and then I'm going to let you get back to your family, which I'm sure you'd like to do. All right. So you went to Buc-ee's.
I did. You got my shirt on.
So first of all, I was in Crossville, Tennessee. What did you like about Buc-ee's? Because I've been to some Buc-ee's, and I'm curious about your...
I was just because of the name and seeing the shirt. I just wanted to see it. And you're like seeing, like 100 gas pumps. It's just... it's massive, and then you get in
there. It's a huge store too.
Wall of beef jerky. There's a whole apparel and like home items, and then there's a whole food section.
It's the strangest department store you've ever seen in your entire life.
Yeah, like the bathrooms are immaculate.
I know, incredible.
The barbecue. The people have to say things which you can tell some of them are regretful that they have to say, like. I forget. Some in the middle were chanting something.
Oh no!
When you come in, they have to say certain things.
Well, I did with the burrito place. Welcome to Moe's.
Yeah,
but they have to do that like in different.
Yeah, there's different things, and so there were like little jingles. So, but we were just stopping to see it. We got shirts, obviously, and then I got something called a. I don't know if it was a Kolish or Kalash or whatever it was called, but it was basically a bun, a warm bun that inside of it had a sausage and cheese.
Oh, that sounds
something
delicious.
That originated in Texas, which is where I think the original Buc-ee's. Yeah, it was like Kolasch, maybe E at the end. And it was like this.
it's Kolache.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks really good. It's got like a swirl, that thing.
Yeah, so like some of them were, it was more, yeah, so it was good. So I was just trying, because I like that kind of savory,
hell yeah, dude,
doughy stuff.
Texas sausage. It says Klobansk.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. It was some weird name, but that was great.
Sweet breading around cheese,
beef, tons of different beef jerky.
Barbecue.
So I wish we were there. It was early in the morning.
Yeah.
So like I wish we were there for like lunch or something like that. But we were it was 4 miles from our hotel as we were leaving Tennessee.
So you're like, all right.
So we're like, oh, we got to stop there.
Got to go.
So
yeah, people were touting Puggies to me before because I'm like, from the Philly area, so. Naturally, I'm a Wawa guy.
Yeah.
Now you were in Scranton, so were you a Sheetz guy or?
So Sheetz didn't come around until I was maybe in high school.
Okay.
So really had Turkey Hill. But
Turkey Hill, yeah.
But they didn't have, like, they had the pre-made hoagies. They didn't have, like, food really at that. It was like the 7-Eleven style.
Yeah.
So, like, there wasn't anything. We eventually got a Sheetz. But, yeah, we didn't have anything like that. Growing up, for the most part, it was just Turkey Hill, and then Sheetz, and then I went to college down this area, so then Wawa became
that
was back when you had to tell them what your order and they fill out the slip.
The little piece of paper, right?
Yeah, because I went to Ursinus in Collegeville, and so we had the one at the bottom of the hill.
Yes,
and they would fill out the slips, and all of that.
R.I.P. that Wawa, it's not there anymore.
I know,
it's Pantry One or something now.
Is it?
Yeah, one of those stones. So anyway. I've taken up enough of your valuable time.
This is great.
So, thank you for joining Digging the Dome. We would say that Jay will be headlining the Sherman Theater on September 9th. He's going to headline the animated comedy show in Parksburg. What the hell is that? On the 21st of September.
It's an animating brewing company. Really cool.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so it's a really cool brewery. They had moved, but yeah, they're in Parksburg. Mm-hmm. Really cool venue. They got a cool Mexican food truck that also works in conjunction with them there. Mm-hmm. It's just a fun little venue. That's Dan Depreel's room. He runs that room.
Awesome. And then because we have a lot of fans in New York too, Gotham Comedy Club in New York
on the
22nd at 7 p.m. So go check Jay out there. Jay. Thank you for coming on Digging the Dome. We would love to have you back on again sometime soon.
This will be great. Yeah, it'd be nice to meet your co-hosts and play the games and do the deal.
Yeah, the next time you'll be less interviewee and more gamey.
But, I'm an only child. I love talking about myself, so this was cool.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, man.
Thank you.